Hi there, come on in and check out this rainbow trout fishing in an Upper Peninsula pond. Flooded timber. Years ago it was a beaver pond, now it's a permanent pond that the owner stocked with rainbow trout. Now they grow fast in ponds like this. There are more of them so you can catch more, at least compared with natural ponds. It's a good place to brush up on fishing techniques, which we'll be doing. And speaking of ponds, we don't know where those big bluegill went that we caught a few years ago. Oh, what a display. Our recipe for venison dip is outstanding, so you stay tuned. I'm Fred Trost. It's Thursday night, time for Michigan Outdoors. Beautiful evening, beautiful lake. Well, it's actually a pond. There's no inlet, no stream filling it. It's fed by springs in several places, pumping cold water in from the bottom. The location is Dickinson County in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. The date, early May, turkey season. The time, about 6 p.m. after the end of turkey hunting hours. This pond has been stocked with rainbow trout, and I'm about to learn a lesson in what fish eat and how far they migrate around a pond, a lesson that's going to surprise the heck out of me. This is over the deep spot where the springs are down. The springs really aren't as important at this time of year when the water's cold anyway, but they are later in the summer. But the trout like to hang around here, these rainbow trout. I'm going to put the oars up here. John, if you could drop that anchor there in the back of the boat. Pitch that over. Good pitch. Didn't get any on the lens either.
Oh, I'm lucky.
Well, this will hold us in position. I haven't seen any trout rising. Of course, we have some ripple on the water from the wind, no problem. I'm gonna set these oars down. A detriment in a boat like this is the noise it makes. Now, these vibrations through the floor of the boat travel 6 times faster through the water than they do through the air. And fish can pick this up, especially through their lateral line, which picks up low frequency sounds, and it does spook them. So it's better if we can sort of sit here a minute and stay quiet. Now you're going to hear in the background, I'm sure, Canada geese. Oh, there's a ton of Canada geese on this pond. Now I got one on. Look at him fight. This is what I'm using is 4-pound test line with an ultralight rod and spinning reel. Look at this. Now see, this is on hooks that have been pinched down. The barbs have been pinched down. And as long as you keep the line tight, I mean, that's going to hang on there. Now trout tend to flip their head like that, and when they jump, they have a chance of shaking the hook. But if you keep a tight line, keep that rod bent over, you're going to be able to keep them on. But take a look at this. This is a rainbow trout. An inland rainbow. I mean, much more highly colored than oh, here he goes, than a steelhead, for example, that goes out to Lake Michigan. But look at that color down its side, boy. You can see why they're called a rainbow trout. Now, I guess we might as well keep a couple of these. What I'm going to do is put them in a bucket of water to keep them alive. Now, up in the lodge here, you might not believe this, but Gene is a fanatic trout fisherman, fanatic outdoorsman, and in his lodge, which is absolutely a dream lodge, he has a big tank that has well water from an artesian well flowing through it, where we put, he keeps trout, so when he wants a trout dinner, they can be fresh. So we're going to take this one. Now the barbless hook comes right out, and in the bucket he goes. I'll change that water once or twice about every 10 minutes. But I know you can't see the fish that are down here, but I'm going to show you. These are trout that have been planted in here. They don't really propagate well, reproduce all that well in water like this, but I'm going to toss out some pellets. These are just commercial feed pellets for trout. You're going to see here in just, I would say within 10 seconds, we're going to have trout coming to the surface. I expected the water to literally explode with trout. I had just tossed out hundreds of these little commercial feed pellets for trout. Why, on the other side of the pond, by the lodge, trout went nuts when you threw a handful into the water. Just look at that. Oh yeah.
The taste of these pellets was something the trout loved. Wouldn't you say that these pellets would make great bait? By the lodge, the trout fought for the pellets, but across the pond, nothing.
Go ahead, fish. Prove me wrong. See, John, people are going to say I can't even get him when I feed him. You know, I wonder, Gene doesn't feed these trout the pellets out here in this part of the pond. They're up by the lodge. He's always throwing the pellets out there. And I wonder if those fish that are up there know what those pellets are and these out here don't. Could very well be. But this lure I'm using, this little spinner, this imitates a minnow. Now, trout mainly feed on aquatic insects, but the larger trout, the ones that we have like right here in the bucket, they shift over and feed on minnows. They need more nutrition, as much nutrition as they can get with each meal. Look at that, I can't believe that. I would have thought that those pellets out on the water would have worked like a charm. There's a theory down the tube.
I would have bet you $1,000 that those pellets would have been gone in a minute or so. They smelled like fish, like some kind of fish meal. They reminded me of the commercial fish scents that you buy to put on your lures. But the scent didn't do a thing for the trout across the pond. They preferred that minnow-imitating spinner.
Yeah, the fish just started to rise just a moment ago. By rise, I mean, what they're doing is they come up towards the surface to slurp a bug. They don't always splash the surface. Sometimes you just see them open their mouth and, whoa. Open their mouth and slurp that bug. Another rainbow for the tank. The less you can handle a fish like this, the better. Sometimes they'll hold still for you to unhook them and put them in the bucket. Okay, I'm going to try it one more time out there. We had about 4 or 5 rises all together. Get this spinner out as far as I can. That was a good one.
What a lesson this was. The trout went for the flash of a spinner on one side of the pond and didn't care about the strong-smelling, good-tasting pellets that the trout learned to love by the lodge where they ate those pellets every day. Apparently, the trout don't migrate much around the pond. They have certain areas they stick to. Those that stay in front of the lodge learn to eat the tasty pellets, but those that live on the other side of the pond in the flooded timber feed on insects and minnows. Toss them an insect or minnow imitation, and they go for it. But don't toss them a sweet-smelling, specially developed fish pellet, because they don't seem to know what it is. If you can catch a fish, open up its stomach, find out what it's eating. That's your best clue as to what you would better be using for bait. A tiny hook and fish pellet would work on this side of the pond, but definitely not on the other.
Very important lesson to learn, that we as hunters and fishermen, if we're going to be successful, we have to deal with what Mother Nature dishes out. Certain food in a river or a stream or a lake, that's what the fish are going to be eating, and that's what we need to imitate. There are patterns that we really need to pay attention to, patterns of where game move at different times of year, when fish can be caught. I analyzed here in our Outdoor Digest magazine, I put together a little chart here of the trophy smallmouth bass entries in our Outdoors Club Fishing Awards over the past 8 years. Now, the red line here represents 1989. Look, we had a big peak there in August of 1989 of trophy entries. 1990 is in the green line, and that really echoes the black line, which is the 8-year average for trophy smallmouth entries. The point here is that if you miss the opening day, don't worry about it. Trophy smallmouth are caught throughout the summer, June, July, August. That's some good news, but of course, I do expect this weekend with the opener, we'll get 2 or 3 entered in our trophy book.
Here's a 21-inch smallmouth bass taken the last week of June by Bill Trapp Sr. of Jackson. He was casting a jig in the Muskegon River, Roscommon County at 7 o'clock in the morning. Now, the first week in August in Gladwin County, just before dark, Jackie Gilliam from Flint caught this 21-inch largemouth bass. She was still fishing a chub. Now, speaking of accomplishments by women, check out this 5x6 bull elk. Sherry Lynn Ritter from Lansing took it in Montmorency County during the December elk hunt. The bull dressed out at 492 pounds. The Risner brothers, Mike and Doug from Dansville, Got their turkeys in Ingham County last year. The birds came in together. They both weighed 22 pounds. They both had 11-inch beards. Which brother is Mike and which is Doug? Well, I'm not sure. They didn't mark it on their picture who was who, but one brother is 8 years older than the other. And that still doesn't help. Oh, well. Here's Harry Chellis and his 34-inch brown trout, 22 pounds. He caught it trolling a Rapala off Ludington in April. Taxidermist Keith Lutz with an 18-inch white bass he caught in the Saginaw Hot Ponds. That weighed 3.5 pounds. 6-year-old Jason Speaks from Frankfort is mighty proud of his 28-inch burbot. He was still fishing a smelt, probably off the Frankfort Pier. That was in mid-April. Steve Carrico from Waterford caught this 40-inch northern pike from the Ausable River on Memorial Day weekend last year. He was casting a chartreuse spinnerbait just before lunch. And Adam Walters from Lansing also caught a 40-inch pike. He was fishing the Grand River on May 23rd, casting a spinner with a minnow.
I had just got out of the hospital and my leg was all messed up. And a friend was with me, and he only had one arm, and this thing got wrapped around like 3 or 4 trees, and he kept going out and getting it untangled. And pretty soon he was standing there, and then it just dashed right out in between his legs, and then the line was wrapped around his legs, and I was like, God, am I ever gonna get this thing? And finally, I just told him to jump off, and he jumped to the side, and the line got untangled, and we didn't have a net or nothing. I had 4-pound test, and I just kept on reaching out. I was in chest-high water, bouncing around on one leg, and just kept on reaching out for it, and finally, after about a half an hour, I finally got it. And
Jeez.
yeah.
What a story you got on that one. And you were fishing the Grand River, not expecting to catch anything like this.
No, I wasn't, no.
I don't know what's better, the story or the trophy, but a 40-inch northern pike is enough to qualify Adam Walters as our Michigan Outdoors Trophy Angler of the Week. A few years ago at the outdoor fair in Houghton Lake, I was sitting on the plank for the Flint Bowman's dunk tank, hit the electronically activated target, and I went down. If you'd like to take another crack at dunking me, you'll have a chance. Now, that's right, I'll go for 30 dunks. They'll receive this pin. I was on the jury that dunked Fred Trost. There will be other pins available at the shoot. These were developed by the Flint Bowman good friends of Michigan Outdoors over the years. They'll have other novelty shoots. The Slewfoot Long Bear shoot will have prizes for people who hit the scent bottle on the bear, including a fishing trip with Emil Dean. There will be a 28-target round, a 14-target broadhead shoot. Food will be available all day starting at 7 a.m. We're holding a Southern Michigan outdoor fair on August 7th, 8th, and 9th at the high school in Bath. That's just around the corner from our museum. Most of the activities and events we have at Houghton Lake will be at the fair in Bath. If you'd like exhibitor information, call Kathy Beitler. We're looking forward to 2 great weekends of outdoor fairs this summer. This weekend at the Michigan Outdoors TV Museum, taxidermist Tim Hayes will be mounting fish on Saturday. And on Sunday, you can see the man who makes these unusual walking sticks. Rich Lafreniere, also known as the Cane Man, will be demonstrating his craft of carving turkey heads and morel mushrooms on the top of custom-made walking sticks. That's really something. You've seen me catch some pretty small fish on this show.
Do you want to put a quarter or a penny in there for scale?
Yeah, maybe a dime would be pretty good. There's small ones.
Here, I'll tell you what.
But you know, a lot of times bluegill like this can become stunted like this, and these will be, you know, bluegill that are 3-4 years old. There we go, a dime. Oh, a quarter. A quarter, that's worse.
That'll give you an idea how big they are.
Still fun, still fun.
Well, it's also fun to catch big bluegill like we did from a farm pond 2 summers ago with Gary Botek. Taxidermist Randy Kemp from Lansing mounted a stringerful.
Right.
How long is that?
That's 12.5 inches.
Man, that's a massive, massive bluegill. The size of that baby. And you know, it's amazing that they have such a small mouth, you know, for the size of the fish.
Right. They almost look like a miniature bass. The girth on them is pretty wide, too.
Oh, yeah, right through there. Well, this is what we were fishing for today. Dave, how many did you catch out of this group?
I don't remember.
But quite a few.
Yeah, we about evened out on the numbers.
Man, this is something. And that one year,
Try to ice fish it.
now you had one up to the hole, a bluegill today.
Yep.
How was that anywhere near any of these that are
Probably
mounted?
one about like this or this.
stringer mount of these bluegills for our museum. I tell you, I wouldn't have believed you could get a stringer like that out of that pond, but I caught a couple of them, so I know they were there. Now, they haven't been there since. We don't know what happened, but that's the way it goes. We do have them on display at the museum, though, for you to see. Another thing we have on display at the museum, we have a lot of different animal mounts. Here's a mount of a skunk. This isn't really a typical coloration of a skunk. This has much more white on it than usual. This was a mount by Franklin Soltz. You can see the size of a skunk, about the size of a cat. Now, you don't want to take an animal from the wild and try to tame it for a pet. It just won't work out very well, but you can get skunks for pets from different breeders. Now, there's a place down in the Irish Hills, southeast of Jackson, called Wildlife Acres, and they have a lot of wildlife on display, not mounted ones, live ones. They also have some babies for sale, including baby skunks. It's an interesting story. Well, we got an albino skunk and a
little
just a
common skunk.
common skunk,
This is
that's what they're
they call
called?
a common skunk, yes. And these are the nicest little house pets in a wild animal that you can get. These are much like taking care of a little kitten in the house. They use a litter box, and they will just really, they're a lovable animal, and they're very clean. They'll get along with your other dogs and cats. You just got to make sure that when you're introducing them to each other that they, you know, that you're careful, because most of the time you're bringing the baby animal into the environment of the domestic animal, and they're not quite sure if they want them there, you know. So you kind of got to be a little bit careful when you're introducing them. But they do make nice little house pets.
I would think
they're very
that
quiet too.
I would think that most people would want the traditional common skunk. I mean, there's something really neat about those stripes.
Right. I think that's the thing that gets people is the fact that everybody knows that's a skunk, and it's kind of fun to have your neighbors come in and see this little critter in your house, and you know, if they don't know it's there to begin with, it's quite a shock when they see them.
Now, the business end here has been all taken care of.
It's been all taken care of.
Disconnected.
It's been disconnected. But you know, I don't think that baby knows that, because they stomp around and they go through all of the motions. They just don't have any ammunition left, that's all.
Is there any difference between an albino as a pet and just a common skunk?
Not really. The only thing is you want to be careful, a little bit more careful with the albino skunk in the direct sunlight, because if they're out for a long length of time, they can actually, like people, get sunburned. And if they get sunburned, they can lose the hair on the back of their coats, and that's the only thing that I find. Actually, they probably don't see quite as good as your regular common skunk does, but neither one of them could see very good, because they wander around, and if you're not watching them outside, they can wander away, and they might never come back.
So they have pretty limited vision.
Yeah,
I guess.
they really do.
This week's recipe is called venison spread dip, and we've had something similar to this before with a North Country spread, and it's actually just using a leftover roast. Now we're going to use venison roast, and you could use just a beef roast. You could go ahead and just put it in a food processor, and if you don't have a food processor, you can just cut it real fine with a fork and knife, and it comes out just the same.
You know, I bet you, though, if you used a pork roast, it would work.
Sure, exactly.
Or chicken.
As long as it's cooked first, and just go ahead and adapt it to the recipe. And you're going to add some bread and butter pickles, and
Chopped
you could,
up.
right, you could add dill if you wanted to. And then your mustard, and just actually all the ingredients that would go into a sandwich if you were just going to use leftover roast without shredding it. A little bit of A1 will kind of give it a kick here. And then, like I say, of course, your mayonnaise, and then some onion salt will go into this.
Onion salt, and that's it for the spices?
And then just a little bit of Tabasco if you wanted to, and that's optional, of course. And then could go on a sandwich if you wanted to, or on crackers.
Well, the advantage of the sandwich, though, is it's between two pieces of bread where you couldn't see it. I kind of think Charlie Keenan is going to react, first of all, to the looks.
It doesn't look like much.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't
This
look like
recipe
much.
proves that looks aren't everything.
That's for sure.
It's got a very nice taste to it.
Oh, it does.
It tastes much better than it looks. I think the pickles and the mustard and everything really comes through in this. And the
Sure does.
venison.
You can taste the venison as a part of it. And you know, Kathy did everything she could for the looks.
I tried.
All kinds of crackers, these little cabbage things and parsley. But still, you got that thing that might be called venison glop glop.
But it's just sitting in a dish.
Yeah, but I tell you, it's great stuff.
It'd be great on a piece of bread.
Now, you can't tell a book by its cover.
But you know, there's a lot probably you could do with this besides using it in sandwich, like a sandwich spread. You could probably put it in Oh, like we've had tartlets and shells and things and bake it a little
Right.
bit, and
Yep.
there's probably a lot of
Add a little bit of cheese to it and throw it in there.
semi-creative. Oh, cheese on top?
Right.
Oh, or just eat it this way. I absolutely love those venison dips. The most terrific kind of recipe. The address, if you want to get a hold of that recipe, is coming up in just a moment.
This is going to be some good fishing for this lake right here.
Next week on Michigan Outdoors, we'll bring you walleye anglers, a story that'll open your eyes. Mark Martin taught me how to fish walleye on a windy day. Now, you won't believe it, but the walleye and pike hang around close to shore where the wind is pounding waves onto the rocks. It's amazing and only good on the days that might not look that good for fishing. This lesson by Mark Martin is definitely worth watching, so I hope you join me next week right here on Public TV.
There we go. And with this barbless hook, comes right out.